Ladies and gentlemen, tonight it's really a big pleasure because I have Ilenia Vidili together with me. Hi, Ilenia, how are you?
Hey, Gregorio, I'm great, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I really say thank you very much for taking time to participate to the CX Goalkeeper podcast. It's really a pleasure because we had the introduction in Italian, but now we are going to speak in English because we want that the audience can understand that. Before we deep dive in the topic that it will be clearly your book, Journey to Centricity, we would like to learn a bit about you. And therefore the first usual question, Ilenia, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for reading Journey to Centricity. It's such a pleasure for me and an honor that you're reading it and you're enjoying it. So, well, as you know, and I'm originally Italian. I'm precisely from Sardinia. I grew up in the Sardinian countryside until I was 19 years old. Basically, I lived abroad for half of my life to date. That's quite a long time. Including 9 years in Cambridge, UK, where I graduated, pursued my university studies, and conducted corporate marketing for some of the most successful multinationals in the world and also startups. Then in 2017, I left my corporate job to do what I do today, customer centricity advisory, keynote speaking, and writing about customer centricity, in fact, Journey to Centricity in this case. And above all, I am a daughter, a sister, a citizen of the world. I'm an avid book reader, a nature and an animal lover, and many other things.
Oh, thank you very much. But I think that's really interesting and something that I never shared. The first half of my honeymoon was in Sardinia. It was an outstanding experience in the experience, really lovely places, great food and great people.
Oh, thank you. Such a pleasure to hear.
Yes, I think there are also really nice places not far away, at least for us, and it's a really nice place to be. Perhaps to a bit deep dive more about yourself, which values drive you in life?
Which values drive me in life? Wow, this is a really interesting question. Actually, do you know what, Gregorio? Nobody has ever asked me this question in a podcast interview, which is really interesting. So on a personal level, what I really value in life are relationships, family, friends, so people around me. I value their genuinity, their humility, their simplicity, their integrity, and what difference they make in the world. So a lot of these personal values are directly correlated to my work. And as you are reading in my book, I believe that you're probably getting the idea of what my values are in life. On a professional level, I'm very driven by bringing humanity to business. And this is translated in almost everything I do with my work, my talks, my research, my writing, my reading, my workshops, connecting with my clients and shaping what are their strategies. So I was, these values were very much shaped and strongly shaped while I was writing my book. Which has really strengthened my mission, that of inspiring companies to embrace a higher purpose, create value for all stakeholders, and contribute positively to society. So this is, in a nutshell, what my values are. I hope they make sense.
It totally makes sense. And only touching the first one that you mentioned, customer experience, it's all about relationship. And therefore, you are in the right community, in the right place to be. And we are really happy to have you in this community. Perhaps now we are going to deep dive in your book, Journey to Centricity. And I think it's really worth it to read it. And therefore, I ask, please, dear audience, please pause the podcast, go to Amazon or wherever you want, buy the book, and then come back, because now Ilenia will share some insights. But it's really worth it to read the book. And I think we should start discussing about customer to centricity. You are speaking about three main topics: it's culture, it's technology, and it's humanity. This is not a priority list, but these are the three main topics. Where does the idea from your book come?
So within the last year of my employment as an employee, I started noticing that the gaps between companies and their stakeholders were far too wide. And that means what customers and employees wanted was completely disconnected, basically the opposite from what companies gave them, right? And I noticed that it was the same story for every company I worked for and every company I'd watch from the outside. And this happened and continues to happen today because companies see the world from the internal perspective with their own objectives rather than the external perspective, that of customers, of course, in the case of customer centricity. And that factor got stuck into my mind for a very long time and got even stronger where I switched to work from companies, from as an employee to as an external advisor. So in 2021, I thought that if we really want to close those gaps, we needed to restructure completely the business narrative. And so I decided to put my views and opinions down into what today is Journey to Centricity. It was an extremely difficult piece of work, as you can imagine. And believe me that this book is the hardest thing I've ever done in my professional life so far, but it's also the proudest piece of my professional life. Because I know that in my little way, I'm contributing to change what I believe is a wrong business narrative. So I think this is how Journey to Centricity came about. It really does come from my personal values and my professional values.
And I really like that, and I really enjoy that. Also, reading through your book, it's not only your ideas or your thoughts, but you are really interviewing a lot of people, a lot of thought leaders, and you were able to structure all this information, all this idea together to create such a masterpiece that it's really, really interesting and can help us in the customer experience community. I think one big topic, and this is something that you were sharing at the beginning, it's about, on one side, it's maximizing profit. This is what the most companies are still doing. And on the other side, it's humanizing business. Could you please elaborate a bit on that?
So, you know, since centuries ago, the main purpose of a business has been, and it still is actually, that of maximizing profit. And which is completely fine. And the only problem with this sole focus of a business is that it becomes detrimental for everyone and everything involved. And most of the times, this is what happens. You know, if we have as an objective, as a purpose, that of maximizing profit, it means that the customer gets completely forgotten or seen only as a number, and the employee as well, and the planet, the environment in which we live, the communities, the society in which we live gets completely forgotten, right? Because, of course, we are driving a business from the greed of that sole objective. And that's why I wanted to, if we want to make that switch from maximizing profit to human centricity, you know, to put the human being at the center, we need to have that shift in mindset, that shift in focus. And that means restructuring the whole business, basically, because having a human-centric perspective means that we are forced to improve every aspect of our business, from the quality of our decisions to our operations and the product or service that we provide. You know, it's just a different focus, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to maximize profit, we're not going to make profit. We can definitely do both. So when the main focus is that of human-centric, in our case, customer-centric, we put the customers at the center. All the decisions are taken based on what the customer wants and how we can make the life of the customer happier, you know? And if we do that, then of course that customer will remain with us for a long term, will buy from us more and more time. And this is obviously what customer experience also is about. and will refer us to other people, what does that mean? That means that it will maximize profits, right? So it is really a switch in mindset, really. And I believe, so I wanted to make this distinction in the book, because I believe that these days businesses are under a lot of pressure for many, many different reasons, such as commoditization of products, lack of relevance in highly saturated marketplaces, and especially more empowered consumers. So why should businesses bring more humanity into their strategies? Well, the reason number one is because customers require it. Having the best product in the market these days is not a differentiator anymore. For today's consumers, brand customer relationship must go beyond that transaction, you know. So customers really want to talk to companies that care about them as human beings and not as wallets. And that's why I base the book all on customer expectations, customer needs, and values. And that's why I believe that businesses need to do that shift, that mindset shift from short-term gain to long-term gain, and creating a more deeper relationship with customers.
It totally makes sense, and I think that's the target, not only having financial returns in the short term, but in the long term. And I think, and this is what I really enjoy reading also through your book, you are speaking about the, let's say, I phrase it like the starting point. A company needs a purpose. Mm-hmm. And I think there is, how do you define a purpose, and how can companies redefine, reshape their purpose that they can go to this customer centricity?
So the way I see it is how a company makes a positive impact on people's lives and the world they live in. Purpose is deeply is a deep and intrinsic connection to the brand and what it stands for. This is how I see it, and it really must go beyond what they sell. So the mere product of the business, right? It must sit at the core of the brand, driving everything it does. It's not something that we add on or something that comes and goes based on the budget we have, for example, you know. So very often I see meaningless purpose statements such as improving people's lives in every day. But what does it actually mean if it's not executed? So what are we actually doing to improve our customers' lives? Do you know what I mean? So my view of company purpose is very aligned with Michael Porter's and Mark Kramer, professors of Harvard Business School, with a concept of shared value. So creating shared value is a shift from the traditional mindset that a company can either do good or make a profit, to a business model that can generate sustainable profit, long-term profit, while also adding value to the world. And I don't mean donating some of the resources, some of the money to charity, for example. That's called corporate social responsibility, which is still very important to do. But I mean taking on board the interest of all stakeholders and adding value to them. I mean taking into account today's social and environmental problems, help tackle these problems, and contribute positively to create a fair and sustainable world while strengthening competitive growth. We can do both. If we care about the environment, if we care about our customers, then we are forced to improve the product and service that we provide, right? And in that little purpose that we have, if we take a societal issue, for example, then we are forced to optimize what is the product, to optimize what is the relationship with our farmers, for example, you know, to optimize the relationship with the environment that we live in that case, for example, with our CO2 emissions and etc. So it really comes from what is our own objective? What are we actually doing, you know? So I always suggest to my clients to start from a societal issue that they truly believe in tackling and in helping to get rid of, let's say, and start from there. And here is where I link back to the concept that we can do both, make a profit and being a stakeholder company. I've seen many companies, successful companies, that are for-profit companies while they are also a stakeholder company. So it's more than doable. It's just a mindset shift from short-term gain to a long-term gain.
And it totally makes sense. And I really like the example that you have in your book about this coffee brand sharing their view. It's one of your clients, you can name that, no problem at all. And I really like, because they're really sharing also the step that they went through to create it, to achieve that. And there you prove that it's possible. And therefore, I really like this. You explain something and then you have the example that proves that it's possible. And therefore, I really enjoy your book.
Thank you very much, Greg. That's really nice to hear. It's really rewarding when I hear my readers' feedback, you know. So I think we are encountering a time of deep uncertainty in the business world and in the world in general. And I think companies can do much more to help tackle these societal issues and this uncertainty, rather than focusing only on pursuing their self-interest and their short-term gains. And also another reason why I believe companies should have a higher purpose is because customers and employees require it, right? Would you work for a company that's interest is only that of maximizing profit, or would you rather work for a company that have a deeper purpose, for example, that's focused on helping society, on helping their community, on helping you as an employee to grow? So that's the difference. Which one would you rather go for? I mean,
Sure.
To me, it's a brainer, you know, it's a no-brainer.
I think nowadays, with everything that's happening around the world, it's clear that's the second option that you are offering, because I want to create also value for other people. Also with this podcast, sharing this discussion, helping others to learn, to find out what is important, what is relevant, and I think it totally makes sense. You're often speaking also about humanity, and if we speak about humanity, it's the big topic about empathy, and you are also sharing quite a lot of great examples in your books. Could you please elaborate a bit on that?
Sure, yes. So empathy, as we know, means understanding the customer perspective. So feeling that experience, what it's like to be a customer of your company, for example, as if you're living their experience. And then using that perspective in our problem solving and decision making. So it's a critical component to developing and building a customer-centric culture. Well, because it enables customer perspective taking, right? I remember when I talked about the perspective of a company, is that they usually see the world from the internal perspective, from the functions and operations and objectives and etc. But they totally forget the customer perspective. So if we are able to be more empathetic, if we are able to have more empathy ingrained in the organization, we will be able to understand much more about our customers. Now, the problem is that empathy is seen as a feminine thing or a wishy-washy kind of soft skill, you know. So leaders don't really care much about it, or don't put it in their, excuse me, or don't put empathy as one of their priorities in their board agenda. So I've seen, what I've seen in companies is that as leaders rise in the rank of the organizations, they become increasingly disconnected from customers. So executive leaders and senior managers have never spoken to their customers, but they are trying to make decisions in their best interest. And that's, I mean, it's a paradox. How can you possibly understand your customers and their experiences if you're not interacting with them, you're not listening to them? So that is customer empathy need to be baked into the day-to-day organizational rituals. But in order to do that, it needs to start from the leadership, because if we don't role model that skill to our employees, and then those employees transfer it to customers, how can we make it happen? It will never happen, right? So in order to do that, how can we do it? We need to have this empathic behavior with their teams, such as asking questions. What would our customers think about this before making decisions, right? So those frontliners, for example, they should be asked, what do you think? How do you think we can improve the relationship with our customers? What do you think? What would our customers think about this? Do you know? If we want to lead with empathy, we must understand that it's not just a soft skill, but it's a critical quality that we need in organizations today. And I believe that as much as we invest in technologies, in new softwares, and in many other initiatives that are critical for the business, we should invest in empathy. So training our empathy muscles, empathy muscles to increase that understanding of customers, to increase that empathy in our teams, in our leadership, and then for customers. That's what I believe we should do.
Is it possible to train empathy? And do you have any suggestion how to do that?
So of course it's possible, because we as human beings, we have our mirror neurons, they are called, you know. And these mirror neurons is where empathy sits, basically. It can be developed from there. How can we do it? The same way that we train our aerobic muscles, you know, our aerobic capacities, we can train our mirror neurons to believe and see more and be more empathetic. So what we can do, we can obviously, for example, the other day I was listening to an interview about Howard Schultz, Starbucks CEO, if you remember, and he said that in 40 years of running the business, during every Monday meeting, board meeting, they had 2 empty chairs as a metaphor for employees and customers. And if they wanted to shape a new strategy, for example, the first thing they would do would be to ask themselves, would this strategy make our customers happy? Would this strategy make our employees happy? You know, and that is putting yourself in the customers and employees' shoes. That is basically what it means to be more empathetic, right? To understanding the other's perspective. So another way that it can be done, that we can develop this empathy muscle, is by spending more time with customers, obviously, listening to them and spending more time with them, so that employees can shape that understanding of customers. And another way of doing this is to physically design the actual experiences so that employees see what customers feel. And I have a lot of examples in my book, if you remember about this, and how companies are actually doing in developing their empathy muscle.
Thank you very much. Times is flying, but I still want to ask some questions. And one thing that I think it's extremely relevant, and I really liked from your book, it's a topic around trust. It's because between 2 human beings, I can understand, and it's easy for everybody to understand how to create trust. But how is it possible to trust an organization that is continuously changing? The board is continuously changing. What's your view on that?
So let's start from the fact that when consumers buy our products or services, they make that decision based on trust. And trust is created on whether companies are able or not to keep their promises. right? So I buy this product. I've never heard of this company. I've never heard of this product, but I trust what you are telling me in the advertisement, in the marketing, in the brochure, in your website, and in everything, right? Consumers want to do business with companies that they trust. And that trust is created, as you say, I use the verb earned over time, in a long term. So organizations have two currencies, money and trust. The currency of money, as we know, is measurable and it can be exchanged with products and services that we provide. Then every organization in the world has another type of currency, trust. If money is a currency of transactions, trust is a currency of interactions. So in this case, customers interact with brands all the time. And so to answer your question, how can companies earn trust? Now, let's start from this misconception that is very common in the business world, that a company can build trust. And that implies that a company is in control. Instead, companies can earn trust from their customers. And that is done over and over in a very, very long time. So there are 4 traits that I believe trust is earned. So 2 of them are emotion-based soft traits. Integrity, and this is about the customer values. Are they aligned? And the brand values, are they aligned? And in other words, is your company promise aligned with these actions, So that is the purpose. If you say that your products are healthy and, if you say that this is X societal issue that you're trying to tackle, but then it's not true, that is not integrity, that's greenwashing, Second emotional-based trait is empathy. And as we said earlier, and this involves walking in someone's shoes and understanding their emotions and understanding their perspective. Now, the rationally based hard traits, and these are very much shaped on the product side, basically. First one is competence, which answers the question, can this company help me? Is it capable? Does it have the skills to do what it says it can do? Does this product satisfy my needs, kind of thing, And then the second one is reliability, which depends on 2 things. Responsiveness. So does the company shows up on time and answer questions? Are you there? Are you helping me in a way? And consistency of behavior over time. So how consistent are you with your behaviors? So that's how I believe trust is earned, but it's a strategy that is obviously needs to be nurtured and done over time for a very long time, because once it's broken, that's a very difficult situation to be in.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the discussion, but we are coming to an end of this game, and I want to ask you some question. What's your biggest learning from the book?
Right. So the biggest learning that I want my readers to take away from Journey to Centricity can be summarized in one word: change. And that means change outdated product mentalities, change the narrow focus on short-termism, change the excessive tech automation, which are all liabilities for the customer-centric culture that we want to create. So this is the biggest learning. As you come to the end of the book, it will come even more clear.
Thank you very much. And as a customer experience thought leader, the question that I always ask is, closing our eyes, we are 10 years from now, and what we are speaking about in customer experience?
So I believe that, well, I would like to see customer experience more human, and that links back to my personal values. I'd like to see customer experience started from a deeper purpose. I'd like to see companies be more human and have a more deeper relationship with their customers on a more empathic and trustworthy and more humanized way. I'd like to see a balance between optimization of technology and optimization of customer interactions, and I'd like to see a culture in which employees feel safe and feel valued, and feel valued in the way that they want and they can interact with their customers. That's the way I'd like to see customer experience in 10 years.
I think not only you, all of us, thank you very much for this summary. And now really in the last minutes of the game, is there a book that you would like to suggest to the audience next to your?
Yeah, so there is a book that's really, I really liked, and is The Heart of Business by Hubert Joly, former CEO of Best Buy. I really, really enjoyed this book.
Thank you very much. And if somebody would like to contact you, what's the best way?
So I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so listeners can follow me in there, or get in touch with me via my website, ileniavidili.com.
Thank you very much. And we will put all this information also in the show notes. And now we are really coming to the last question. Is Ilenia golden nugget, it's something that we discussed, or something new that you would leave to the audience?
Right, golden nugget, I would like to say that technology, products, and profits come and go, but it's the purpose, mindset, and soul of the business that stays. And this is also a phrase that closes my book, basically.
Thank you very much. Outstanding reminder. We can learn something, and I think we learned a lot. Therefore, thank you very much, Ilenia, for your time. Please stay with me, and also to the audience, thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to have Ilenia. Please give us your feedback. Buy Ilenia's book, A Journey to Centricity, and let's keep in touch because feedback helps us to grow and to get better. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this episode, please share the word of mouth. Subscribe it, share it. Until the next episode, please don't forget, we are not in a B2B or B2C business, we are in a human-to-human environment. Thank you!